right, everybody. We've got another very special guest for you this week. I want everyone to welcome back to the show the Master of Horror, Mr. Cullen Bunn. What's going on, Cullen?
Hey,
Not
Colin.
much. How are you?
Good. It's good to
Doing
see
good.
you.
Yeah, good seeing you.
We used to refer to you as the all-powerful or great and powerful Cullen Bunn, but
Well, that
now,
power's
yeah,
faded over the years, I guess.
yeah, Master of Horror is, I think, more fitting, right? That's kind of like where you found yourself.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it. I'll take either one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're fine with either one either.
How
As
about
well.
the
So,
great and powerful Master of Horror, Cullen Bunn?
I like,
wow.
I
Yeah.
like that.
There we
That
go.
is
Yeah.
that seems
Mix.
to. Yeah, I like the ring of that.
There you go. All right, we'll go with that one.
It's going on his business cards now, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Watch out. Yeah, man. Thanks for being back. It's been a while. We always have so many different things to talk about when you show up, and it like always comes and goes. There's like a series that I wanted to talk to you about that I've already read, and like now you got new shit coming out that I haven't read yet. But I know I wouldn't shut up on the show about it. But Power Rangers, Godzilla, Power Rangers, man, that book was so much fun.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
was the name of the game on that one. Was fun.
how did you get pulled in for that? Like, where did that come from?
So it was IDW reached out to me. I've done Godzilla books for IDW before.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they know that I'm always interested in doing more Godzilla stories.
Yeah. Okay.
I've pitched some Godzilla stories over the years, and so they reached out about it and just asked if I was interested in, Godzilla versus Power Rangers. I was like, well, that hasn't been done yet. That feels like something that has almost certainly been done, but it hadn't. So it was really just them coming to me and asking what I'd do with it, and then I just took that ball and ran with it.
Because I'm a huge Godzilla fan myself. Not so much Power Rangers, but like the Megazord versus Godzilla just makes sense, right?
Yeah. Well, it's weird. And if you're like if I wasn't a huge Power Ranger fan either. I mean, I'm familiar with them. I think I was watching. Well, I know I was watching the Power Rangers the day it debuted in the States, and but I was never like I didn't follow it religiously. And there's a few things that diehard fans have to take with a grain of salt because, and this is the kind of rabbit hole I fall down when I'm working on a book like this.
Yep.
Is I start going on sites and finding out how big is Godzilla compared to the Megazord, and how and
Yep.
the Megazord is a lot smaller than Godzilla in canon. So I had to fudge those numbers
Really?
a little bit. Yeah, I had to make them. But let's be honest, this little these Zords turn into something that's a giant anyway.
Right,
So I think
right.
size doesn't really play a key factor in this. I don't think anyone's really measuring it.
Uh-huh.
But I guarantee at some point, somewhere in the future, someone's going to really put me to task about the size of the Megazord compared to Godzilla.
I was going to ask how many fanboys came after you about that, but apparently the answer is zero.
Zero so far.
None yet. But I would. As I took this project on, I'll be honest. As I was writing, I was like, "Oh, I just know people are going to rip me apart for getting something wrong about the personality of one of the Rangers or some pseudo scientific fact." But no one has really come after me yet for any of what I'm sure are a massive number of mistakes that I made in terms of the canon of the Rangers. The good news was Freddie Williams, who did the art, he was a lot more into the Rangers than Godzilla. So he was able to, if I started going in a direction that just didn't work, he was able to say, "Hey, that's not how baseball evil Babe Ruth monster works."
Yeah, those Power Ranger villains were ridiculous back in the day, and if I remember correctly, your favorite Godzilla villain was Biollante, right?
Well, I like them all.
You like them all? Yeah,
I like them all.
Yeah.
I like Space Godzilla a lot.
Godzilla is awesome.
I like Mecha Godzilla. I like all the Godzilla villains, all the monsters. It was different because when I first conceived the idea for the story for Godzilla versus Power Rangers, I didn't have any of the Power Ranger monsters in it really.
Oh yeah.
Because I just didn't see how they would work together,
Right.
Mhm.
But then I was like, well, this is a fun book. It's kind of a no holds barred, no rules. Let's put them together. And then I had a lot of fun playing them against each other. Is that the Godzilla monsters and the Power Ranger monsters are always throwing one liners out. They're
Yeah.
always
Right.
throwing they live and breathe puns.
Yep.
And the Godzilla monsters are just
Yeah. Right. Right. They have some attitude though in the movies, like they get some facial expressions going on or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, but it was
That's
fun.
awesome.
I mean, it was fun once I decided that one they would let me throw all those Power Ranger monsters into it. It was a lot of fun to see them, play against each other.
Yeah, that's cool. And like you said, the name of the game was fun, and Chris and I talk about it all the time. We need more fun in comics because there's all the heavy stuff, but then we need to like wash our brain and read something to.
Yeah, it was only intended to be it's a popcorn comic. It's
Yep.
it's a comic to just kind of cut loose, and it lives in a weird time period of 70s Godzilla, but also maybe some of the 90s Godzilla stuff. But it was just about just having a little bit of fun on the page.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Very cool.
I would love sticking with some old stuff. I know we want to talk about some new stuff, but how is the Kickstarter realm been going for it? I know you've been doing it for a little while. One of the times we talked, you had just dipped your toes into it with a few books. Now you're a little bit more seasoned.
Yeah.
How have those books been going for you?
See, Kickstarter's interesting because I make a whole new host of mistakes every time I dig into Kickstarter. And it's always
Really?
like, oh, I figured it out now.
Yeah.
And then I don't repeat those mistakes, but then I make another batch of terrible mistakes. So it's going all right. I've had some misfires in terms. I mean, every Kickstarter I've done has been successfully funded, and we've delivered on all of them. One of them delivered quite a bit late because I had some problems on the fulfillment side of things, but everything's been delivered. We've got one right now that I just closed. Well, I did one called Democritus Brand and the Endless Machine that closed a couple of months back, and it's fulfilling right now. Fulfillment sending them out, and we just closed. I ran on behalf of Dynamite Comics. I ran the Reanimator Reanimator Kickstarter that just wrapped up a week or two ago, and I won't. Luckily, I don't have to fulfill any of that. That's all on Dynamite really to take care of that side of things. And I'll keep doing them. I just I don't know that I'll ever figure it out completely. I know there are people out there who just have it. It's like clockwork machine. They know exactly how to do it, and I don't know that I have the brain to ever be one of those people.
You know what it is, Colin? It's a moving target. It's like trying to shoot a moving target. Like
it really is. Yeah, I mean,
I'm friends with a few people inside that like that's their thing. That's all they do. They're not published by Marvel or anything else. That they do Kickstarter, and it's constantly just trying to figure out where the trends are moving and what's this doing and all this and
and it
so
feels like once you've figured out where one of those trends are, it's already changed, and it has now you got to figure something else out. But they're going all right, and like I said, I was just talking to an artist a couple of days ago that we have a book coming out, but it doesn't come out until 2025, and he wants to do something in between so that we have some something out. So we're probably going to do a short Kickstarter to have something that we're working on together, even while we're working on that other book.
Very cool.
And I'm just going to touch on this quick because we're going to talk about your new stuff next, I promise. But I got to read the Bloodborne comics in between last time we talked and now. And I'm a huge Dark Souls Bloodborne fan. And when you had the chance to write that, I'm like, well, yeah, the body horror stuff makes sense, So like you get a lot of that in Bloodborne, right? You get some weird, freakish monsters. So how did that come about for that book?
it was weird, and it was kind of a strange kismet because I've played Bloodborne.
Yeah.
I am terrible at it. Like it
Yeah.
is to me, I don't know if there's a harder video game in the world.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
there's level 3 of Donkey Kong, and then there's Bloodborne, and they're right there side by side. This terrible
Yeah.
Donkey.
Yeah. Yep.
And Bloodborne is so difficult, but I love the world so much. So I'm so bad at the game, so I don't get to see the world. So I was watching videos about the lore of Bloodborne and watching playthroughs just to see
Yep.
the world.
Yep.
And I remember sitting at my desk saying to myself, if they ever did another Bloodborne comic, it's a shame if I don't write it. And it's like that went out into the ether because a week or two later, I got an email from one of the editors at Titan saying, "Are you familiar with Bloodborne, and would you be interested in doing a comic?" And I was like,
That's crazy.
so it just all came together in sort of uh, it's like fate smiled on me that said, "Hey, here's your chance to do this Bloodborne book."
That's awesome. You were doing the research before you even had the
I was, yeah,
opportunity.
I was into it just because I like the look of it so much. It's got such a cool vibe
Yep.
for a video game,
Yeah.
and so I was in it. I just and then it just came about. So yeah, I was very fortunate. It was good. It was fortunate timing on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
So you are a gamer? Like you play a lot of games, or as many as you can?
You got time?
I don't know that I would consider myself a gamer because I am so bad at them.
Me too.
Once video games advanced beyond one button that you had to push, I was out. I mean,
Yeah,
I was as lost as I could be. I just got like a Raspberry Pi emulator thing.
Yep.
It plays
Yep.
it has like basically every game I played when I was a kid, either whether it was in the arcade or on the Atari or on the Nintendo, it has all of them. So I've been going through playing those, and I'm terrible at all of those too. I used to think I was really good at them, and I'm bad at those too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm a fair weather gamer, and it's never fair weather for me when it comes to games. So I just get very frustrated very quickly. I liked my son and I. There was a moment in time where he was really into games, and we would play together, and that was fun. And we'd take turns whenever our character got killed. We'd switch off the controller and see if we could get a little further in the game. That was fun, but now I just play every now and again. I'm playing Legendary Wings right now, and that's a game from the '80s that I really liked. So
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I remember seeing the news that you were doing Cyberpunk, and I was just like, something clicked in my head. Like I love you, Colin. I support a lot of your work, but Colin's doing Cyberpunk.
well, and I never, I did not play the Cyberpunk video game when it came out, although I was interested in it. But I played Cyberpunk, the role playing game, when I was a younger man. So I was familiar with Night City and Cyberpunk. Just so that's the reason I got into it. Really, is because I liked it from the old days of playing the pen and paper role playing game.
And I had no idea that it was a role playing game.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
wild.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's crazy. I must have missed that somewhere. That's amazing.
Yeah. So and I enjoyed that book. That was and really they let me kind of be a horror writer with that too. It's a pretty dark story when it's all said and done.
That's fine. That's you're the master of horror, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Hey, the great and powerful master of horror.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Put some respect on that name.
Yeah, let's
new
get
title.
it right.
Sorry, guys. New title.
Let's get it right.
All right. So you got a lot more stuff coming out. That seems to be the pattern when we talk to you. I guess we'll talk about Red Zone. That's ongoing right now, right?
Yeah. I think issue 2 just came out from AWA.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not reading that one, but give us the lowdown on that one.
So Red Zone, now that's the book that you should say that doesn't seem like the kind of story you should be writing, Cullen.
It doesn't. It does not.
But Red Zone is it's a spy book that it's basically a story of a quirky professor of Russian literature and history who goes to Moscow and gets embroiled in these horrible, this action packed adventure, and we find out that he is more than capable of handling himself in those situations, even though it is he's in his 70s and he's dealing with these. We find that his past is catching up with him. He in the 80s he was a lot more. He was much more than a professor of um, Russian history, and now he has enemies that are catching up with him and coming back after him here and now in Russia. So it's really it's an action. It's like an action movie comic book.
Yeah, and I think that didn't pop in my head because that was a chocolate and my peanut butter situation where like I love especially Cold War era spy thrillers, James
Right.
Bond, all that stuff is like my thing. And when I heard that you were doing that with one of my favorite artists, Mike Diodato Jr., I didn't even ask questions. Other than where can I buy it?
Yeah, that's awesome. So
And you've been working a lot with ADW recently. Like I've noticed a few books here and there with them. How's their model been with you? Like how's their relationship been there?
Well, they've been really great. You know, uh, I've known Axel Alonso from AWA, since I started working at Marvel. So when he left Marvel, he kind of reached out to me about doing some books with him. And it's interesting because the books I've done with AWA have been a little weird, I guess. I've done like a a kid's robot story, and I've done Red Zone, but I really enjoy working with them. And I, Axel's always been a big supporter of mine. He's always kind of had my back in comics. So I'm happy to keep working with him and doing more with him as we go along.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, when I see your announcements through them, it kind of reminds me of a story you told us about Aftershock when you said, you had your pitches, and I'm shortening what you said, but you
Yeah.
had your pitches and they basically went to the one that you thought that nobody would ever publish. And
Yeah.
that's how I felt about these two books when I saw them. I was not that I'm like nobody would ever publish these, but that they're just when you hire Cullen Bunn, you don't think like I'm going to get a spy thriller out of them. But
Yeah,
well,
right.
and it's interesting because Red Zone, the origins of Red Zone were Axel came to me and he said, "Hey, I want to do a book," and he kind of had ideas for characters. He's like this quirky older character. What kind of weird situations could we put them into? And I gave him 4 or 5 pitches for that, Red Zone among them. And Red Zone was the one I thought, okay, this is not the one they're going to take. But of course, it always is. No matter, I needed to stop saying that because if I say that, that's definitely the one they're going to take. But yeah, I had 4 or 5 ideas that I gave them that I needed to go through, and yeah, that they wanted to pick the one I would have probably. I mean, I like it just fine, but it's not. It's just it was a surprise to me. That's the easiest way of putting it.
yeah.
Right. Cool. Yeah, Chris is a huge spy thriller fan, and I'm not so much. So that's why I was like, okay, this one isn't for me. But when I saw Bloodborne, I was like, hell yeah. But that's the great thing about you is like you write all genres, all publishers, like you're everywhere usually. So it's like, man,
Well, yeah,
diversifying those bonds.
yeah. I try to do. I don't expect anybody to buy every book I put out because they're not all. I don't. If I don't intend for them to be for everybody because I'm trying to do different things. Even when I'm writing, horror stories, not all of those. The horror has a lot of different flavors. And I don't know if people are going to like it or not like it or what. And so it's fine. Somebody might not like cosmic horror, but they really want a slasher story. Well, I have books for each of those, and that's fine. Now look, anyone who wants to buy every book I put out, they are considered my friend for life. But yeah, I don't expect people to uh, to pick up everything I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, understood. And I guess we'll just move on to the next one. We were talking about some stuff before we started recording. You got something coming out with Boom soon, right? Ghost Lore.
Ghost
That's
Lore,
coming out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ghost
So
Lore
what's the
comes out in, I guess, what month is it? Ghost Lore comes
April?
out in May.
Okay.
Ghost Lore is a new 12-issue maxi series, I guess is what you call it, from Boom. It's
Maxi series.
that's what we used to call them back in the day when DC was
Yeah.
Yep.
doing them. They were the 12-issue maxi series.
Yeah, it's coming back.
Yeah, I still call them that.
Yeah.
So Ghost Lore is it's about the general concept is I wanted to do a book about what kind of ghost stories ghosts tell. So Ghost Lore is about this father and daughter who, after a tragic accident, discover they have the ability to communicate with ghosts, and ghosts are all around them, and ghosts are desperate to communicate with them. So as they, try to recover from this tragedy and try to put their life back together, spirits are coming up to them and wanting to tell them stories. And as they tell these stories, they kind of cement into our world, and then they can be led on to another, a peaceful transition into the afterlife. And what we find out is the father and daughter have very, very different methods of dealing with these spirits. One of them, it's a very peaceful transition, and one of them, it's a very violent transition when dealing with these spirits. But the neat thing about Ghost Lore, the main series is drawn by a talented artist, Leo Max, who did is it Basket Full of Heads.
Yep.
He's
Really
just
great
a very
artist.
talented guy. But as the ghosts tell stories, every issue we get a short story by another artistic team that tells the ghost story. So in
That's
the first issue, for instance, Brian Hurt, who I've worked with for years and years, is doing the ghost story. In the second issue, Danny Luckert, who I've worked with in the past, is doing the ghost story. Every issue, while Leo Max is the main artist, every issue a new artist comes on and tells one and draws one of these ghost stories.
That's awesome. That's a really cool idea.
It kind of gives me the opportunity to tell this epic storyline, but then it also gives me the opportunity to do almost like an anthology story each issue as well.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's an interesting concept. So you kind of have like the overarching 12 issues that you know what you're going to do, and then you can kind of pick and choose some stuff in the middle there of what you want to show off. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's one of those books. We have it scheduled for 12 issues, so it has a beginning, middle, and end. We know where it's going to, we know I know where it wraps up. And there's just I like that format. I've done that now with Boom a few times now, is these 12 issue series, and it's a fun format just because it's better than a 4-issue arc. Sometimes those feel like you just have to really rush and fight to get the story out. So 12 issues, it gives you a little more breathing room to do.
Cool. That's a cool concept.
Yeah, and I think Boom recently has been, from the outside looking in, has looked like it's been more creator friendly and putting out these really interesting creator owned books. So it's really cool to see them working with good people.
Yeah, I think they're doing some really cool things.
Yeah, and then you have Lamentation coming out through Oni Press, right? Let's talk about that.
Also in May, Lamentation is a 3-issue series, but it's 3 giant issues. I mean, I think that each one is double sized. 3 double sized issues. Arjuna Sasuna is drawing it. And it's another horror story, but a very different kind of story. It's a very surreal story about a girl, a young actress who is just getting her feet under her. She goes to an audition at this old dilapidated theater that she thinks is probably, on the outside looks like it's closed down, but she goes in, and as she gets in there, she gets the part that she's auditioning for almost immediately. which is great, except it soon becomes apparent to her that she can't leave the theater until the play is performed, and the story of the play, which is this very dark, surreal story, is starting to bleed into what's going on in reality.
Interesting. I love the cover, that style of artwork, like the old horror movie poster style
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say
title.
that cover is dope.
Yeah, they did. They did. They did a couple of different covers for it, but yeah, they're all pretty awesome. The one
Yeah.
with the one with the skeletal figure in the
Yep.
background, and
Yep.
yeah, they're really cool covers.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are
so I'm
really
looking at the A
interesting.
cover, the B cover. Oh no, that's the issue 2 cover is really cool as well. Like, I'm just looking at a ton of covers right here.
Yeah.
Oni killed it on the cover art for this
Yeah.
book.
Which is, I would say, like, Oni's not someone known to be like getting into horror books, really. At least I haven't read many from them. I don't know. You could correct me on that if
Well,
I'm
I
wrong.
mean, they've done a few
Yeah.
over the years, and they've done some books for me that have had sort of cross genre. A lot of people consider the Six Gun a horror western that I did with
Oh,
Oni.
okay.
I
Yeah.
think of it more
Yeah.
of a fantasy western,
Yeah. Same
they've
here.
done that, and they are definitely going to be doing more horror books. I have another horror title with them that I'll be starting on pretty soon. So
Cool. Very cool. How's that 48-page format for you for 3 issues? Does that mess anything up? How does that
it
work?
didn't. It was really interesting because originally I pitched Lamentation as a series, a mini series, and then Oni came back and said, "Well, let's do it as a graphic novel."
Okay.
I said, "All right, we'll do it as a graphic novel," but I still kept my outline as a limited series, so it still hit those sort of milestones and those beats. And then when they came back not long ago and said, "We've changed our mind and we really want to do it as a series," it did. I honestly I had to do very little work to make it work in that format because I'd already written it really in that format. So we were just able to break it up very cleanly.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because the 3
That's cool.
issues, 48 pages. That's, yeah, interesting way to break it up, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I was done with I was done with it before I knew that was the format it was
Yeah.
going to be in. So,
Yeah. Cool.
but thankfully, I'm actually. It's one of those times where usually if I'm writing something I think is an original graphic novel, I don't worry about where the big moments happen. They just
Right. The
happen
big
when they
breaks.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I kept it as the same outline as a series, so those big moments happen where they're supposed to still.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get at there. If you had it outlined, like how difficult is that to like make sure those things happen where they're supposed to? But
If it had just been I was just writing it without concern for if it had always been originally conceived as an original graphic novel, it would have been a nightmare to break it into
yeah,
3 issues. But
I can
but
imagine.
since I had originally conceived it as a series anyway, it worked just fine. It was not stressful, thankfully.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And now we got the big one, the big elephant in the room here.
The triumphant return.
Yeah, going back to Marvel with Death of the Venomverse. So I remember you killed uh you killed some heroes with Deadpool, and now what are we doing with Venom? What's going on here?
So Marvel came to me and said, it's Venom's anniversary coming up,
Yep.
and asked if I wanted to do another Venomverse series. And the Venomverse series is always the idea behind Venomverse is let's look at the multiverse of all the different universes. There are endless amounts of people who have got people or creatures who have gotten the Venom symbiote over the years. So there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different Venoms. And I said, yeah, I'm down for doing that. And they kind of gave me the lay of the land in terms of where the symbiotes are right now, in all the different, in Venom and in Carnage, and kind of where they wanted to go in the future. And I said, well, based on what you've told me, the series you're asking me to write is called Death of the Venomverse, and you have to let that title be a promise, and you have to let me kill these characters off.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Death of the Venomverse basically follows Carnage, who is on a mission going through the multiverse, killing every version of Venom he can find.
Love it.
Now, he's not just doing this, though, for mindless mayhem. He has a goal in mind, and he has he has something he's trying to achieve. Now, that's the thing, I can't tell you what that is, but he's trying to achieve something. So this isn't just killing for the sake of killing. It is Carnage is trying to accomplish something. So we get a core group of Venoms who kind of come together and band together to try to stop Carnage, who is gradually becoming more and more unstoppable as the series goes along.
That's pretty awesome. And when you say like multiverse Venoms, how many of these are like are you creating all these different multiverse Venoms? How many have you had a hand in, like, oh yeah, this would be pretty cool to have a Venom like this, or what?
So one of the things that Marvel's doing is they're doing like this this limited series. I think it's called Edge of Venomverse. We did this last time we did a Venomverse series. They did Edge of Venomverse, and different writers came in and wrote a bunch of 8-page stories or 10-page stories introducing different versions of Venom. So there was Captain America Venom, and so a number of writers have done that again.
Okay, cool.
So I didn't, and most of those I didn't write any of those short stories. However, I did create some Venoms first of all, I created some Venoms in the old days, in the original Venomverse series that do show up again, some of them. And I created a few new characters. A lot of times the inclination is, let's make Captain America with Venom, or what does Moon Knight look like with Venom, or what does Devil Dinosaur look like with Venom, and that's all great. I love that stuff. But I created a couple of characters for Venomverse, or for Death of the Venomverse, that are new versions of the Venom symbiote, but they're not called Venom, and they're not like a superhero that is wearing the Venom symbiote. It's a new character, and I'm creating new characters with that, with the symbiote as the mechanism for it.
So, kind of like Scream, like Scream is a Venom, but her own thing, same time.
Yeah, sort of like how Scream she's her own thing. But yeah, so I'm introducing a couple of characters. There's one called Chaos Engine that you guys are I think is really awesome, and there's one called, man, I'm probably not supposed to say this. I don't care. There's one called Asgardia that I think people are really gonna like. And they're basically brand new characters that just have, the Venom symbiote is the source of their power.
That's awesome.
Because in a multiverse, not everybody can be Captain America with a Venom symbiote.
Right.
It's funny you say that, because before recording, Mike and I were talking about like our favorite Cullen Bunn books and everything, because we're trying to get each other prepped for everything. And I said, it's a really underrated Cullen Bunn book, as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that book was awesome.
And then you bring that up, and I'm like, it's Kismet. Like, it's meant to be.
It was a fun, as Guardians of the Galaxy was such a fun book for me, but it was kind of cursed from the beginning, because it came out in the middle of 2 events. So the first, and I don't even remember what those events are anymore. The first, but there were 2 events that hit like at the beginning and at the middle. So it was kind of always destined to be, messed up by events happenings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I bring it up just to say, like, to you have this character as Guardia and this new thing, and you returning to Marvel for the first time in however many years. It just kind of made me laugh that, I was talking about that book, and then.
Yeah. Well,
that's awesome.
I think Asgardia will be a fun character that I really hope people like these. I hope people like these new characters before I destroy them horribly.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it has to be the death, right? Death is in the title.
Right? So I don't know I can't say that anybody's going to make it out of this thing alive.
There has to be some gruesome ways for them to go too, right? I mean, I gotta.
There's some gruesome. I mean, Carnage alone is kind of a gruesome character.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Carnage taking out his rage on all the Venom symbiotes in the multiverse. He gets carried away sometimes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait for
That
that.
was, I mean, maybe you can't answer this, and
I'll
if you
try.
can't, just tell me. But is this a one-off where like Marvel called you for this one thing, like, hey, you're known for Venom, you want to be a part of this Venom anniversary, or are you back at Marvel?
Well, I'm back at Marvel for this title. Who knows? If that,
Okay.
and after this, I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you that I've sent pitches for what could be next, but I'm not holding my breath for it. We'll see. I have reached out with some ideas and some characters I'd like to tackle, but at this point it's hard to say if those things will happen or not.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I'm always curious of creators because sometimes some people, it feels like they, what's the nice way to put, they go through the Marvel system or the DC system to, be inclusive of
Mhm.
DC, and they make their bones, they get their thing, and then I'm done. Like, I'm gonna go do my own thing, and they never come back, or they don't intend to ever come back until they need money. But
I
so I'm
never
always
made
curious
those
to know, like,
bones.
was that your intention? Like, I did my thing at Marvel and DC, and
No,
now I want to do my
no.
own thing, or
I've said this in many places, and I mean it I mean it wholeheartedly. If 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 DC had let me keep writing Sinestro, for instance, I would be writing
Hmm.
Sinestro now.
Yep,
I would
yep.
never not be writing Sinestro. If Marvel had let me stick around writing X-Men or Deadpool books, I'd still be writing X-Men and Deadpool books. Uh, I don't write these characters. I mean, I've taken books in my career that I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this, and sometimes it's worked out, and sometimes it's not. But typically, I'm writing these stories because I love them, and
yeah,
when I start writing these characters, I kind of fall in love with these characters, and I don't want to let them go. Uh, so, I would write Venom until I can't hold a pen. So it was never a matter of, I'm going to do time at Marvel and check out. I would have, like I said, I would have stuck there as long as they would have let me.
I
And
love hearing that.
but
Yeah,
but things like that, it doesn't necessarily always happen the way you think it's going to happen in
right,
the world.
right. I can imagine.
So yeah, I'm sending some I've sent some new pitches in for what I would do after Death of the Venomverse, and we'll see. If honestly, I think a lot of it's going to depend on how well Death of the Venomverse does. I think
Hmm.
Marvel pays attention to how well these books do at whatever time when they come out. So if it does well, then I think there's a better chance that I'll do more books going forward. But I can't say that I can't say I'm back, for instance.
Right.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
doing, because you got to keep in mind there was a time at Marvel where I was writing more Marvel books than any other writer, and at the same
Uh-huh.
time I was writing more DC books than any other writer.
Yeah.
Uh, and and even then, I can't say I ever felt like I made my bones and it was time to get out.
Yeah,
that
right,
was
right.
never that was
Yeah.
never a comfort that I ever once felt.
Okay, understood. Um, this is a good segue into what I wanted to talk about before we wrap up here. You have your website and you're pretty vocal, or at least pretty current with your posts and stuff like that. And we'll plug everything like we always do. But one thing you did post back at the end of March was how to support your favorite writer, and we don't have to go through that whole article and everything like that. But I thought that was a pretty cool thing to post of like how to support writers, and even if it's just sharing your books with friends, like hey, buy this for somebody else, if you
Yep.
already have all Cullen stuff. And there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So I want to direct everybody to like, okay, check out cullenbunn.com, but also he has some other things in there that are related to the industry and how to support people. And I thought that was really cool. So
Yeah, that was just, and I'm going to be doing more of that kind of stuff on the site. But yeah, look, I don't know if you guys know it or not, but times are tough, and they are tough for everybody right now.
yep.
And just like I said earlier, I don't expect everybody to buy every book I publish. I also know people can't afford to do that necessarily anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think people have to be a little more conscious of what they're picking up, and the kind of books that they're buying. But even then, if you can't buy everything, and I have people come up to me. That article was kind of inspired at a convention. I had a couple of people come up and say, "Look, I can't buy books right now. I lost my job. I just had a baby. I can't buy books. What do I do?" There are lots of ways to support creators that don't include buying the books. Absolutely, if you can afford it and you want to buy the book, please buy the books. That's the biggest way. But talking about books, leaving reviews, all of that kind of thing, that stuff. There are things you can do that don't cost any money that can still make a big difference in a creator's life. I mean, all the way down to just reaching out and saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed whatever that book or that book you drew or that book you wrote," and all of those things make a difference and are ways of supporting uh, creators, even if you can't necessarily spend a
I
fortune in books right now.
I always tell people the simplest, cheapest, lowest effort way for you to support any creator, doesn't matter what they do, is to hit a retweet or
Yeah,
a share or
yeah,
whatever the social media platform does for that.
Right. Share something.
That's
yeah.
it.
Any of that stuff helps.
Yep.
And the thing is, I think a lot of people think, it's so little effort it can't make a difference, and that's not
They're
the case.
wrong.
It absolutely can make a difference. And that's, and even though it seems like it's not doing much, it is.
Yeah. Agreed. And
Definitely.
that's honestly you found us out because Chris and I don't buy all of your books. You've found us
I'm
live right
done.
here.
Goodbye.
So that's why we have you on the show so much, because we
Yeah.
gotta make up for that.
Listen,
Goodbye.
Colin, you started making barbarian books. We'll talk, but
No,
Wait,
but
Barbarian like Conan, or Barbarian like the movie Barbarian that came out last year?
like
yeah,
Conan. Like, so I got here. We're gonna pimp this book again because I love it. Muddy Barbarians. Just a bunch of barbarians doing barbarian shit. Like, come on,
Who publishes that?
Ablaze.
Wow, I'm not familiar with that book.
I would prefer you to write a barbarian book like Barbaric.
Oh yeah, well that's a pretty great book. There's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
problem with that is I'm not going to try to write a book like Barbaric, because Barbaric is been done and is
I'm,
pretty,
I'm sorry. I
great.
meant Barbarian, the horror movie, right? Which was the
Oh,
weird horror movie that came out like last year? Was that
That
Barbarian?
was Barbarian. Yeah,
Oh, the
Okay,
sequel to
Barbarian.
Conan the Barbarian. That one.
Yeah,
you know what? It's just a big mashup.
yeah,
Barbarian.
yeah. Do them all.
It's a book about Conan living in the basement of a Airbnb.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. In Detroit, love it.
yeah.
I was really disappointed when Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't show up. I was like, "What is
Yeah,
this?"
what's
Like,
going on here?
Well, that's the best way to have gone in to see that movie, is expecting Arnold, because then it's even more of a surprise for you.
Yeah. Then you're even you don't know what to think. Uh, Cullen, thanks again for being on. We always appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Well,
And
I appreciate you having me on it. It
yeah,
means a lot. It's always good to talk with you.
yep. Thanks, appreciate that.
and yeah. So before we take off, do you want to pimp out anything, social media, your website, anything like that?
Yeah,
Before we,
the best way to reach me, my website is cullenbunn.com, and from that you can get to, my any of the social media I'm on. You can get to I do an e-newsletter every Sunday morning that goes into a lot of detail on things I'm doing. You can get to that from my website. I have a Patreon where I post everything from things I'm working on right now to free comics. Um, so you can always check me out on Patreon and see if that kind of stuff appeals to you. But yeah, my website is sort of the gateway to all that. Just cullenbunn.com.
And to all the listeners and watchers out there, I will have the links to Cullen's website and his Patreon in the show notes down below. So click those, check it out, and see what cool stuff he's doing. Because we only scratched the surface of the work that Cullen's doing. We didn't talk about Nightwalkers.
Oh my god,
We
yeah.
didn't talk about a vampire book on this podcast. But we've got to go because Cullen's been very, very generous with his time. So thank you all so much for watching and listening. Cullen, thank you so much for talking
Thank
with
you.
us. And I
Thank
can't
you.
wait for the next time we do it, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.